The snowstorm that night descended like nature's wrath, swallowing everything on the narrow road leading to Ridgewood, a town Alexander Scott never thought he would set foot in. The snow fell thick and heavy, and the wind howled as if it wanted to tear through everything in its path. His luxurious car skidded on the slippery ice before crashing violently into a roadside tree. The clock on the dashboard blinked, marking the passing seconds, while the biting cold seeped through Alexander's thick coat. Pain shot through his arm, and blood trickled from a wound on his forehead. His consciousness faded, but not before he caught a blurry figure running toward him. A gentle voice broke through the chaos. "Hang in there! You're going to be okay! I'm here!" When Alexander woke up, he found himself lying in a modest, small room, the faint scent of antiseptic lingering in the air. He felt the warmth of a pair of hands tending to him, and his gaze settled on her, the woman with striking blue eyes, gentle yet holding deep, unspoken sorrow. She was Amelia Brooks, a volunteer doctor at this humble medical station. Time seemed to slow down in the small town of Ridgewood. Outside the window, snow blanketed the rooftops of the old houses, but inside the tiny treatment room, something else was growing between Amelia and Alexander, an inexplicable connection that words could not define. Amelia cared for him with unwavering dedication, not just with her exceptional medical skills, but with a sincere gentleness rarely found in the fast-paced world he belonged to. Alexander, a CEO accustomed to billion-dollar deals and cold, calculated decisions, found himself drawn to Amelia's simplicity and warmth. His physical wounds were insignificant, but perhaps his heart had never felt so healed. Late-night conversations under the dim glow of the bedside lamp, the crackling of the fireplace, and soft laughter echoing through the cold winter nights outside. Amelia shared stories of her difficult childhood and the reason she chose to abandon everything to be here. He listened, understood, and slowly realized the emptiness in his lavish life. "Why did you choose to stay here, in such a remote place?" Alexander asked, his sharp eyes following her every movement. Amelia smiled softly, her gaze distant. "Because here I don't have to prove myself to anyone. I can do what I love. No pressure, no judgmental eyes." He didn't ask further, but his mind was filled with questions. A woman like Amelia should have belonged to a prestigious hospital, where she could shine with her talents, not bury herself in such a desolate place. And yet the warmth between them continued to grow. Welcome, our dear friend, to today's story. Wishing you health and happiness. Please subscribe to the channel and become part of this growing family. The snowstorm that night came like nature's wrath, swallowing everything on the narrow road leading to Ridgewood, a town Alexander Scott never thought he would set foot in. Thick snow fell relentlessly, and the wind howled, determined to tear apart anything in its way. His luxurious car skidded on the slippery ice before crashing violently into a roadside tree. The clock on the dashboard flickered, marking each passing second, while the biting cold seeped through Alexander's thick coat. Pain throbbed in his arm, and blood trickled from a wound on his forehead. As his consciousness faded, he barely managed to see a blurry figure running toward him. A gentle voice pierced through the chaos. "Hold on, you're going to be okay. I'm here." When Alexander woke up, he found himself lying in a modest room, the faint scent of antiseptic filling the air. He felt the warmth of a pair of hands tending to him, and his gaze settled on her, the woman with striking blue eyes, gentle yet filled with deep, unspoken sorrow. She was Amelia Brooks, a volunteer doctor at this small medical station. Time seemed to slow in the quiet town of Ridgewood. Outside the window, snow blanketed the rooftops of the old houses. But inside this tiny treatment room, something else was growing between Amelia and Alexander, an inexplicable connection that words could not define. Amelia cared for him with unwavering dedication, not just with her exceptional medical skills, but with a sincere gentleness rarely found in the fast-paced world he belonged to. Alexander, a CEO accustomed to billion-dollar deals and calculated decisions, found himself drawn to Amelia's simplicity and warmth. His physical wounds were insignificant, but perhaps his heart had never felt so healed. Late-night conversations under the dim glow of the bedside lamp, the crackling fireplace, and soft laughter carried through the cold winter nights outside. Amelia shared stories of her difficult childhood and the reason she chose to leave everything behind to be here. He listened, understood, and slowly realized the emptiness in his lavish life. "Why did you choose to stay here in such a remote place?" Alexander asked, his sharp eyes following her every movement. Amelia smiled softly, her gaze distant. "Because here, I don't have to prove myself to anyone. I can do what I love. No pressure, no judgmental eyes." He didn't ask further, but his mind was filled with questions. A woman like Amelia should have belonged to a prestigious hospital where she could shine with her talents, not bury herself in such a desolate place. And yet the warmth between them continued to grow. Everything seemed too perfect to be true, until the harsh reality struck. One evening, Amelia accidentally found a business card tucked inside Alexander's coat pocket. His name, Alexander Scott, CEO of Scott Medical Innovations, hit her like a crushing blow. She stood frozen for a long moment as memories of the past surged back. Scott Medical was a renowned healthcare corporation, and if he was the CEO, it meant he belonged to a world entirely different from hers. Fear crept into her heart, fear that her past would be exposed, that the media would once again hunt her down like a cornered prey. The following morning, as Alexander watched Amelia quietly preparing medication for her patients, his phone rang. On the other end was Eleanor Whitmore, his fiancée, a loveless engagement arranged by their powerful families for business gains. Her cold, authoritative voice shattered the peaceful atmosphere. "Alexander, your parents have finalized the engagement date. I hope you won't complicate things any further." Amelia, overhearing the conversation, trembled as she set down the medicine bottle, her eyes clouded with disappointment and pain. She had allowed herself to dream too much. Even though she knew she could never belong to his world, she couldn't resist the feelings that had grown in her heart. But now everything was clearer than ever. He was a CEO, engaged to another woman, and he would never belong to her. That night, Amelia sat beside Alexander's bed, watching him sleep. Inside her, a storm raged. She loved him, but she was terrified. She remembered her past, the pain that had once shattered her dreams. She had once been a brilliant surgeon at a top hospital in New York, admired by colleagues and trusted by patients. Her career was soaring, her future promising, and she believed she was born to save lives. But everything changed after one fateful surgery. One day, Amelia performed a complex operation on a highly influential businessman in the financial world. The surgery lasted hours, and despite her utmost efforts, the patient did not survive due to rare complications. The hospital's official report confirmed it was an unavoidable risk and not her direct fault, but the public was unforgiving. The media pounced on the story, turning Amelia into the target of a merciless witch hunt. Sensational headlines branded her as the white coat killer, accusing her of negligence that cost a powerful man his life. The patient's family sued the hospital, public outrage erupted, and judgmental glances from colleagues made her feel like a criminal who could never be forgiven. Amelia was not only dealing with professional pressure, but also relentless attacks from the public. Every time she stepped outside, whispers followed her, and suspicious looks drained her confidence. The voices in her head echoed relentlessly, "You ruined a man's life. A terrible doctor like you doesn't deserve to be in the operating room." The nightmares dragged on, leaving her physically and emotionally exhausted. Gradually, she lost the courage to step into the operating room again. Her once illustrious career crumbled overnight, and she began to believe she was no longer capable of saving lives. She rejected every offer to return to major hospitals and decided to leave New York, where every corner reminded her of failure, leaving it all behind to escape. With a broken heart, Amelia left the bustling city, abandoning everything from her past. She arrived in a small town where no one knew who she was, where she could start over without the pressure of media scrutiny or public judgment. There, she chose to become a volunteer doctor, treating impoverished patients who had no access to modern healthcare. Working at the community clinic helped her regain some sense of purpose. Here, she no longer faced suspicion, but found simple people who cherished every moment she spent helping them. But deep down, Amelia could never shake off the fear that one day her past would catch up with her and she would once again have to confront those terrifying nightmares. When she met Alexander Scott, Amelia found a flicker of light in her dark world. He wasn't just a patient. He was the only man who seemed to see through the pain hidden within her. But when she discovered he was the CEO of a major corporation and engaged to another woman, all her fears returned. She feared that if the past resurfaced, his powerful family would never accept her. She didn't want the nightmares to return and strip away the peace she had worked so hard to build. And so she had no choice but to leave. She wrote a letter, each word cutting through her heart. Alexander, I'm sorry for leaving without saying goodbye. There is no future for us. You have your path, and I have mine. Forget me. Live well, and don't look for me. The next morning when Alexander woke up, Amelia was gone. No trace, no explanation. All that remained was an empty room and an aching void in his heart. Returning to New York, Alexander carried with him a hollow emptiness. He resumed his fast-paced life. Business meetings, extravagant parties. Eleanor stood beside him like the perfect shadow, and the engagement date loomed closer with each passing day. Yet deep inside, Amelia's image haunted him. Her gentle smile, her warm gaze, and the long nights they spent sharing their unfinished dreams. During his time at the small Ridgewood clinic, Alexander found himself changing. No longer the powerful CEO with a packed schedule, he became a different man. A man who found rare tranquility in the simplicity of life in this small town. The modest room, the poor but kind-hearted patients, and most of all, Amelia's presence. She made him feel like more than just a businessman. She made him feel human. Amelia was always by his side during his recovery. Each night, when the town fell into silence, they talked for hours about life, about dreams they thought were long lost. She told him about her time as a surgeon in New York, the high-pressure surgeries, the moments spent standing between life and death. But then, her voice faltered when she spoke of the incident that made her walk away from it all. I once thought I could save everyone, that I would become the best doctor, Amelia said quietly, her gaze lost in the falling snow outside the window. But I failed. One mistake, and I lost everything. She stopped there, unwilling to say more. Alexander watched her, recognizing the deep pain hidden in her sad eyes. He wanted to say something, to comfort her, but all he could do was silently take her small hand in his. For the first time, she didn't pull away, allowing him to feel the quiet rhythm of her heartbeat. Slowly, Amelia began to open up more. She laughed when Alexander recounted his struggles in building his business, the days of living in a tiny apartment, surviving on instant noodles, and dreaming of success. You have everything now, Amelia smiled, but there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. And I lost it all. Alexander wanted to argue, but deep down, he understood that Amelia didn't need empty reassurances. What she needed was time and patience. The morning he woke up feeling uneasy, he instinctively reached for Amelia's side of the bed, only to find it empty. A wave of fear swept over him as his eyes landed on a letter resting on the bedside table. He read each word, and an overwhelming sense of emptiness consumed him. He ran outside searching for her, but it was too late. Amelia had left, taking with her a part of his heart that he could never reclaim. Back in New York, everything felt meaningless. The endless meetings, the lavish parties with Eleanor, and the congratulatory words about their upcoming wedding, all of it felt like an elaborate performance he no longer had the energy to play. Beneath his cold CEO facade, he was still a man desperately searching for the woman he couldn't forget. No matter how hard Eleanor tried to pull him back into their world, the void Amelia left within him was impossible to fill. Eleanor wasn't oblivious to Alexander's distant demeanor. She was a smart woman, and it didn't take long for her to notice the emotional chasm growing between them. You can search for her, Eleanor said coldly one evening after yet another extravagant party, but remember, she doesn't belong in our world. Alexander simply looked at Eleanor without responding. Perhaps she was right. Amelia didn't belong to their world of wealth and power, but that didn't mean he could let her go so easily. Amelia, on the other hand, had started over once again. After leaving Ridgewood, she drifted from town to town, working at small community clinics, always keeping a low profile, always looking over her shoulder. She feared the day her past would catch up with her, feared that the man she loved would come searching for answers she wasn't ready to give. Yet in the quiet moments of her solitude, She placed a gentle hand on her growing belly, realizing she was no longer alone. The life inside her was a constant reminder of the man she left behind, of the love she once dared to dream of. And as much as she tried to convince herself that leaving was the right decision, there were nights she lay awake, wondering if Alexander ever thought of her the way she thought of him. In the days that followed, Alexander silently searched for Amelia everywhere. He hired the best detectives, followed every lead, but it was as if she had vanished into thin air. Every time he uncovered a clue, a faded photograph or a scattered medical record, it led to another dead end. Each night he held the letter Amelia had left behind, reading it over and over again, as if searching for a hidden message within the words. She had written that they had no future, but Alexander knew deep down that she still loved him. What he didn't know was that Amelia carried a secret that would change everything, their child, the result of a love she had tried so hard to deny. On the other side, Amelia Brooks left the small town in the early hours of dawn, long before the sun could cast its light over the snow-covered streets. Her small suitcase contained everything she needed for a new life, and every memory of Alexander was carefully packed away, buried deep within her wounded heart. She couldn't let him know the truth. She couldn't allow the past to haunt her once more. Stepping onto the last bus out of town, Amelia had no clear destination in mind. She only knew that she had to leave Alexander, leave the turmoil in her heart, and leave behind the prying eyes of the world. After leaving Ridgewood, Amelia spent the first few months in another small town, where she found work at a remote community clinic with meager pay. Life there was peaceful. No one knew who she was, and no one mentioned the tragic surgery from years ago. However, it was during those early months that Amelia discovered she was pregnant. The realization struck her like a wave, her heart pounding with a mix of joy, fear, and uncertainty. This child was a part of Alexander, a tangible reminder of the love she once dared to believe could overcome all obstacles. But now Amelia felt nothing but isolation and confusion. She wrestled with the decision. Should she tell Alexander or continue to disappear from his life? The haunting memories of her past, of the media frenzy and public scrutiny, made the choice for her. She knew she had to stay away. Each passing day, Amelia found solace in the quiet flutter of life growing inside her, but also lived in constant fear that a single misstep would drag her back into the spotlight. Determined to protect her secret, Amelia kept moving from one town to another, searching for a place where she and her unborn child could be safe from the outside world. She changed her name on medical records, took on short-term jobs at mobile health clinics in rural areas, and avoided forming close relationships. Everywhere she went, there were people who needed her, and Amelia threw herself into her work as a way of atoning for the past. But no matter how hard she tried to move on, the nights were the hardest. Alone in a small rented room, she would sit quietly, her hands resting gently on her growing belly, whispering lullabies to the child she knew she would raise alone. She couldn't stop thinking about Alexander, the man she loved but could never have. As she settled in different places, Amelia's heart was torn. She wanted to be found, but at the same time, she feared it. She knew that if Alexander discovered the truth, his powerful family would never accept her or their child. The world he belonged to, filled with wealth, power, and scrutiny, was no place for the quiet, peaceful life she wanted to give their baby. Each morning, she would wake up before dawn, head to the clinic, and immerse herself in treating patients. She found comfort in the gratitude of the people she helped, in the smiles of the children she vaccinated, and in the quiet satisfaction of knowing she was still doing what she loved. But at night, when the world grew silent, she would let her tears fall freely. No matter how far she ran, Alexander's presence lingered in her thoughts, a ghost of a love she couldn't escape. In a small southern town, Amelia finally found a place she could call home, at least for now. Here, she could continue her work in anonymity, live a quiet life, and prepare to welcome her child into the world. The townspeople saw her as nothing more than a kind-hearted volunteer doctor, and that was exactly how she wanted it. But deep down, Amelia knew the storm was far from over. One day, Alexander would find her, and when he did, he would bring with him all the ghosts of the past she had tried so desperately to bury. In a small southern town, Amelia found a place she could temporarily call home. Here she could quietly continue her work, living in anonymity as an unassuming volunteer doctor, and nurture her child with unconditional love. Yet deep down, she knew that the storm had not truly passed. One day, Alexander would inevitably find her, bringing with him the tempest of the past that she had tried so hard to bury. Now, Alexander Scott, the talented and wealthy CEO, felt like nothing more than a puppet being pulled along by his family's carefully orchestrated plans. His upcoming wedding to Eleanor Whitmore was seen as the perfect alliance to solidify the power between two leading financial and medical technology empires. But deep inside, Alexander's heart did not belong to this marriage. At lavish parties and high-profile media events, Eleanor was always by his side, smiling radiantly, their hands intertwined like the perfect couple. Yet only Alexander knew the truth. This was nothing more than a carefully staged performance to appease the public and their families. His mother, Margaret Scott, a sharp and formidable woman, never ceased her relentless pressure. She believed that this marriage was the key to securing the Scott family's dominance in the medical technology industry. Alexander, you need to understand, to survive in high society, we need strong alliances. Eleanor is the perfect choice. Don't let fleeting emotions jeopardize the future of our empire. Alexander clenched his fists in silence, offering no response. Sometimes he wondered if his family truly cared about his happiness, or if he was merely a pawn in their never-ending game of power. Eleanor, on the other hand, had no illusions. She understood the nature of their arrangement and had no intention of stepping aside. To her, Alexander was the golden ticket that would solidify her family's standing in the financial world. She loved the image they projected in public, loved the success their union would bring, but love itself was absent. "You still haven't forgotten her, have you?" Eleanor asked one evening after they attended a charity event. Alexander turned to face her, his eyes cold and distant like an endless ocean. "I never intended to love you, Eleanor. We both know that." His blunt honesty left Eleanor momentarily speechless, but she wasn't deterred. She knew that once the wedding took place, Alexander would have no way out. Despite the mounting pressure from his family, Alexander had never stopped searching for Amelia. For months, he had exhausted every resource available, hiring private investigators, reaching out to hospitals, and chasing even the faintest leads. Yet Amelia seemed to have vanished from his world. Each time he found a faint trace, it slipped through his fingers before he could grasp it. The investigators reported that Amelia had once worked at a small hospital on the outskirts, but she had left shortly after, leaving no forwarding address. A nurse at the hospital remembered a young woman with sorrowful eyes, deeply dedicated to her patients. Yet no one knew where she had come from or where she had gone. Long nights found Alexander sitting at his desk, staring at old photographs, piecing together fragments of Amelia's life. The sense of loss grew heavier in his chest with each passing day. One night, his closest friend, David Carter, sat beside him, sighing heavily. "You can't go on like this forever, Alex. If she wanted to leave, maybe you should respect her decision." Alexander's gaze remained fixed on a photograph of Amelia tending to patients at a remote clinic, her eyes filled with compassion and hidden sorrow. His voice was low but firm. "I can't let go, David. She's the only person who ever made me feel alive." Eleanor was not the kind of woman who would give up easily. She quickly noticed the emptiness in Alexander's eyes whenever they were together, as if he was searching for someone she could never replace. As the wedding day approached, her impatience and frustration grew stronger. One morning, Eleanor stormed into Alexander's office, tossing a tabloid onto his desk with a bold headline. "Eleanor Whitmore's powerful fiancé. Is he truly faithful?" The article was filled with rumors about Alexander secretly searching for another woman, complete with photos of him discreetly leaving small hospitals and clinics. "What are you doing, Alex?" Eleanor's voice was cold, laced with irritation. "Do you think you can run away from this marriage? The media is watching your every move, and our families won't tolerate any mistakes." Alexander glanced at the paper but remained unfazed. He knew Eleanor had begun using the media as a tool to pressure him, forcing him to accept the reality she wanted. "I don't care about the media, Eleanor. If that's what you want, go ahead." His voice was low yet resolute as he stood up. "But don't expect me to love you." Eleanor clenched her jaw. She couldn't comprehend why a woman like Amelia, a mere volunteer doctor in a small town, could captivate Alexander so deeply. Her frustration grew day by day. She began arranging interviews with the media, appearing frequently at social events alongside Alexander to reinforce the image of their supposed perfect relationship. "Alexander and I share a strong bond," she declared on a television interview with a flawless smile. "We are a couple destined to be together." Alexander remained silent throughout these events, feeling like a prisoner trapped in an inescapable cage of societal expectations. Every word Eleanor uttered only reinforced the sense of entrapment within him. Despite being surrounded by the press, extravagant parties, and work pressures, Alexander couldn't stop thinking about Amelia. Each night, when he returned to his luxurious penthouse, an unbearable emptiness filled his heart. The large bed felt cold and lifeless, and there was no one to share the small yet meaningful moments of life with. He often wondered if Amelia was doing well, if she had found happiness in a place beyond his reach. One evening, standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows of his apartment, gazing out at the dazzling lights of New York City, he whispered to himself, "Where are you, Amelia?" As time passed, Alexander's search remained fruitless. Every trace of Amelia gradually faded away, as if she had never existed in his life. Meanwhile, the pressure from his family escalated. His mother, Margaret, grew increasingly insistent, urging him to sign the wedding documents and finalize the arrangements. He found himself standing at a crossroads between a loveless marriage that would secure power and influence, or continuing his hopeless pursuit of the woman who had stolen his heart. With every fiber of his being, he longed to find Amelia, to hold her once more. Yet the relentless demands of his family and the looming wedding felt like an inescapable noose tightening around him. Choosing to delay the inevitable, Alexander continued his search, holding on to the last shred of hope, even though it felt more impossible with each passing day. 5 years later, drizzling rain fell on the narrow streets of Willow Creek as Alexander Scott stepped out of his sleek luxury car. His crisp suit stood in the stark contrast to the simple surroundings of the town. He was here to attend a small charity event sponsored by his corporation, never imagining that this trip would bring him closer to the woman he had been searching for all these years. Inside the event venue, children were running around, their laughter filling the air. As Alexander's gaze swept over the crowd, it suddenly froze. His heart skipped a beat when he spotted a small boy intently drawing in a corner of the courtyard. The boy had soft brown hair, fair skin, and striking gray-blue eyes. The very same eyes Alexander saw in the mirror every day. Alexander stood frozen, memories flooding back like a tidal wave. Unable to shake the strange feeling in his chest, he approached the boy. "What's your name?" he asked in his deep, gentle voice. The boy looked up, his clear eyes meeting Alexander's, and smiled innocently. "My name is Ethan." The name hit Alexander like a punch. It was the name he had once thought of for his future son. His heart swelled with an inexplicable emotion, an undeniable certainty creeping through him. Before he could ask further, a familiar voice echoed from behind him. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" Alexander froze. "Amelia." She stood there, her long hair now neatly tied up, her face still as gentle as he remembered, though it bore traces of exhaustion. Her eyes, however, sparkled with shock as they locked onto his. In that moment, everything else faded away. Just the two of them, standing amidst the flow of 5 long, painful years. "Amelia!" Alexander's voice trembled, barely escaping his lips. Amelia, on the other hand, was gripped by sheer panic. She instinctively reached for Ethan's hand, pulling him behind her in a protective gesture. "What? What are you doing here?" Amelia's entire world crumbled before her eyes. She had spent every single day trying to stay hidden, every sleepless night convincing herself that he would never find her. And yet, here he was, standing before her, his eyes filled with anguish and frustration. Before she could say anything more, Alexander took a determined step forward, his gaze unwavering. "The boy. He's my son, isn't he?" Amelia took a step back, clutching Ethan's tiny hand tighter, her heart pounding wildly. She couldn't run anymore. "Alexander, please, just leave," she pleaded, her voice trembling. But Alexander was no longer the man he used to be 5 years ago. He was stronger, more resolute. I've been searching for you all these years, and now you're standing here, with our son. Do you really think I can just walk away? Silent tears began to roll down Amelia's cheeks. She turned away, her voice heavy with pain. I didn't want you to be affected. I couldn't let you suffer through the scrutiny, the judgmental stares. I left for your sake. Alexander shook his head, his eyes burning with a mix of sorrow and anger. You never gave me a choice, Amelia. Did you think I wasn't strong enough to protect you? To protect our child? Amelia choked back a sob. I didn't run away just because of you, Alexander. I ran because of me. I can't go back to that world. A world where every mistake is magnified, where I lost everything because of one failure. She lowered her head, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't have the courage to face it again. Alexander gazed at her, his expression filled with deep pain. Every word she spoke felt like a dagger to his heart. He wasn't just hurt because she had hidden their son from him. He was heartbroken by the fear that still consumed her. You can't live in the past forever, Amelia, he said, his voice laced with both anger and desperation. Our son shouldn't have grown up without a father, and I shouldn't have spent the last 5 years feeling so empty. Amelia remained silent. She knew Alexander was right. She knew she had been selfish to leave without giving him an explanation. But how could she return? She didn't want Ethan to be drawn into the calculated world of Alexander's family, nor did she want her son to grow up under the weight of rumors and public scrutiny. I'm sorry, she whispered, but I can't go back to New York. I don't want Ethan to live in that environment. Here, I can be a doctor in my own way, live a simple and safe life. Alexander clenched his fists, his voice dropping to a low, pained tone. Do you really think I'll let you and my son stay away from me forever? No, Amelia. I've already missed too much time, and I won't let that happen again. Ethan, still hiding behind his mother, looked at Alexander with curious and confused eyes. The little boy seemed to sense a strange connection between himself and the man standing before him. Amelia glanced at her son, tears welling up in her eyes. She knew she couldn't keep the truth hidden any longer. He's your son, she finally admitted, revealing the secret she had kept buried for the past 5 years. A wave of emotions crashed over Alexander. He knelt down, his hands trembling as he gently placed them on Ethan's small shoulders. My God. Ethan ... His voice cracked with raw emotion. Ethan hesitated, looking at his mother and then back at the man in front of him, sensing something profound. Who are you? He asked innocently. Alexander smiled, his eyes stinging with unshed tears. I'm your father, Ethan. The boy looked at him with wide eyes, then turned to his mother for confirmation. Amelia gave a small nod, her tears falling silently. Ethan studied Alexander for a long moment before, unexpectedly, reaching out his tiny hand to hold his father's. The touch nearly broke Alexander. That small hand carried everything he had been searching for over the past 5 years. Yet Amelia still maintained her distance. Please, Alexander. Let me decide what's best for our son. Alexander looked at her, his voice gentle but resolute. I want my son to have his father, Amelia, and I want you. I'm not giving up. Neither of them spoke further. Only the cold evening breeze whispered through the trees, carrying with it the weight of their unspoken emotions and the years of longing they had endured. Amelia knew the peaceful life she had built was now on the brink of collapse, and Alexander, he knew he would do whatever it took to reclaim the family he had lost. Are you still following the story? Did it touch your heart? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. The news of Alexander finding Amelia did not take long to reach Eleanor's ears. She wasn't surprised. Instead, she simply smirked, her sharp eyes glinting as she sat in the plush leather chair of her office at Whitmore Enterprises. She had known this day would come, but she wouldn't let Alexander slip away from her life so easily. A phone call was made, and a few hours later, Alexander received a short, chilling message from Eleanor. If you think you can go back to her without consequences, you're wrong. I won't let her sinful past stay buried forever. Alexander gripped his phone tightly, his knuckles turning white. He knew Eleanor well enough to understand that she wouldn't hesitate to follow through on her threat. If Amelia's past, the failed surgery that had haunted her for years, were to be exposed again, it wouldn't just ruin her career. It would shatter the peaceful life she had built for Ethan. That very evening, Alexander found Amelia, his face tense with concern. "Eleanor knows about you and Ethan," he sighed, his eyes clouded with worry. Amelia froze, her heart pounding in her chest. The nightmare she had feared for so long was slowly becoming a reality. "She won't leave us alone," she whispered, her fingers gripping the edge of the table involuntarily. Alexander stepped closer, taking her trembling hand in his. "This time, I won't let you run away. We'll face her together. I will protect you." Amelia took a deep, shaky breath, her mind torn with uncertainty. She knew that running away would only trap her in a life of endless fear. But facing it, did she have the strength to withstand the storm of public scrutiny? After a long pause, she looked straight into Alexander's eyes. In them, she saw unwavering determination, fierce devotion, and above all, love. "All right," she said softly but firmly. "I won't run anymore. I don't want Ethan to have a mother who keeps running away." Her newfound resolve led Amelia to make a bold decision. She registered for the upcoming International Medical Conference in New York, a gathering where some of the most renowned doctors, including those who once judged her, would be present. This time, she wouldn't let her past dictate her future. Alexander supported her decision wholeheartedly. He arranged a professional media team to help her handle the inevitable questions from the press. However, Amelia knew that the real battle would be hers alone. She would have to stand on that stage, face the world, and reclaim her life with her own strength. As the conference day drew near, Amelia prepared herself mentally and emotionally. The fear still lingered, but with Alexander by her side and Ethan as her inspiration, she was ready to confront her demons and prove that she was more than her past mistakes. The day of the conference arrived. Spotlights illuminated the grand stage of the most luxurious hotel in New York. Amelia stood behind the curtains, her palms damp with sweat. She could feel the curious yet judgmental gazes of the audience. The fear that had held her back 5 years ago surged once more, but this time she was no longer alone. Alexander stood in the audience, his encouraging gaze shining with pride. Beside him was Ethan, holding his father's hand, looking at his mother with absolute trust. As Amelia stepped onto the stage, her voice trembled at first but gradually grew stronger. "5 years ago, I failed in a crucial surgery. A highly influential figure passed away, and I became the center of public scrutiny, criticized, condemned, and drowned in shame." The hall fell into silence with all eyes fixed on her. Amelia took a deep breath, her voice filled with sincerity. "But if I had the choice again, I would do everything the same way, because I did everything within my power to save his life. I am not a perfect doctor, but I am a dedicated one." A soft yet sincere applause filled the room. The once judgmental gazes began to soften with understanding. Amelia continued, this time with a gentle smile. "I have let fear control me for too long. Today I stand here to say that I will not run anymore. I will continue the work I love and dedicate myself to helping those in need." The room erupted in applause. Amelia looked down at Alexander and Ethan, both smiling radiantly. She knew she had made the right decision. Immediately after the speech, Alexander made a bold declaration to the media. In front of hundreds of journalists at the Scott Enterprises press conference, he stood with a determined expression. "The engagement between Eleanor Whitmore and me was a business arrangement between our families, but I cannot live a life without love. I hereby declare that this engagement will not take place." Behind the stage, Eleanor stood frozen, her face pale with rage. She approached Alexander, her voice seething with anger through clenched teeth. "You'll pay for this, Alexander. Don't think I'll let this end so easily." Alexander met her gaze unwaveringly. "I need nothing else but Amelia and our son. If you want to fight, then do it, but I will not back down." Eleanor smirked, her eyes filled with cunning malice. "I won't let you and that woman have your happiness so easily." With a cold glare, she turned and walked away, leaving behind a tense atmosphere. But Alexander knew that this time, He wouldn't let anyone interfere with his happiness again. That evening, Alexander returned to the apartment where Amelia and Ethan were waiting. When he opened the door, he saw Amelia sitting by the window, gazing out at the city lights twinkling in the distance. He walked over and embraced her from behind, his voice warm and reassuring. "We've made it through, Amelia. Nothing can stand in our way now." Amelia smiled softly, placing her hand over his. "I'm still not used to this feeling of being loved and protected by you." Alexander turned her gently to face him, looking into her eyes with unwavering sincerity. "I lost you once, Amelia. I will never lose you again." They kissed, a sweet, lingering kiss that mended the years of pain and separation. In that moment, Amelia knew she had finally found where she truly belonged. From across the room, Ethan watched with a bright smile, happy to see his parents together. The future would still bring challenges, but now Amelia and Alexander knew they could face anything, together. Autumn had painted New York City in warm golden hues, but for Alexander and Amelia, the warmth came not only from the season, but from the love and reunion of their family. After years of struggle, Amelia decided to stay in New York and continue her medical career, not as a way to escape, but to face her true passion. Together, she and Alexander founded the Hope Care Foundation, focusing on providing free healthcare services to underprivileged communities. It was a place where Amelia could pursue her passion without the pressures of media scrutiny or societal expectations. Ethan, their son, had grown into a bright and lively young boy, living happily with his parents. Alexander, once consumed by high-stakes business deals and relentless meetings, now found true meaning in life, not in wealth or power, but in the quiet evenings spent with his family. Under the twinkling lights of a family gathering at the Scott Mansion, Alexander and Amelia walked in hand, while Ethan excitedly ran around them. This time, Amelia's presence no longer drew whispers or judgmental glances from the Scott family. She had proven her worth, not through wealth or status, but through her strength, intelligence, and compassion. Standing quietly in the corner was Alexander's mother, who had once vehemently opposed their relationship. She watched the small family with a thoughtful expression, remembering the days when she believed only Eleanor was suitable for her son. But tonight, as she saw Amelia tenderly caring for Ethan and witnessed the genuine happiness in Alexander's eyes, she realized how wrong she had been. Slowly, she approached Amelia, her usually stern eyes now softened with warmth. "Amelia," she said gently, "I once thought you didn't belong in this family, but today I realize that no one could bring Alexander happiness the way you do. Thank you for staying, for giving my son a real family." Amelia was taken aback, her eyes glistening with emotion. She reached out and held Victoria's hand, whispering, "Thank you for giving me the chance to prove that love is not about wealth or status, but about understanding and trust." Alexander stood nearby, his heart swelling with pride as he watched the two most important women in his life finally finding harmony. After the party, Alexander led Amelia to the mansion's garden, where soft candlelight flickered amidst the scent of her favorite flowers. Holding her hand tightly, his eyes shone with sincerity. "Amelia," he began, his voice tender, "for years I searched for you, not just the woman I love, but the one who made me realize the most important thing in life: family." He dropped to one knee and pulled out a small velvet box, revealing a simple yet elegant ring that symbolized his unwavering love for her. "Will you stay by my side forever?" Overwhelmed with emotion, Amelia nodded silently, extending her hand toward him. Alexander slid the ring onto her finger, pressing a gentle kiss to the back of her hand. A sacred vow. Applause erupted behind them. Victoria and Ethan stood watching, their eyes filled with joy. Ethan cheered, "Mom, you're finally Dad's bride." Laughter and tears of happiness filled the air as the family embraced tightly, as if they had never been apart. They held a simple yet meaningful wedding ceremony at the chapel of the charity hospital they had built together. The space was adorned with white flowers and flickering candles, creating a warm and intimate atmosphere. Amelia wore an elegant, modest wedding dress that radiated both gentleness and strength. Alexander stood at the end of the aisle, his heart overflowing with happiness as he watched Amelia walk toward him. The vows echoed through the sacred space filled with love and solemnity. I promise to always love you, protect you and our little family, no matter what challenges lie ahead. I promise to build a life filled with love, to walk beside you on every journey. As Alexander gently placed a kiss on Amelia's lips, the room erupted in applause. But no one was happier than Ethan, standing proudly between his parents, his little heart bursting with joy. After the wedding, Amelia and Alexander continued their dedication to charity work, expanding their hospitals and healthcare centers for the underprivileged. Amelia no longer feared her past. She became an admired doctor whose story inspired many with her resilience and compassion. Alexander found a perfect balance between work and family. He realized that true fulfillment did not lie in business achievements alone, but in the precious moments spent with his wife and son. Late at night, in their cozy home, Amelia leaned against Alexander, while Ethan slept peacefully between them. Alexander whispered softly, "We have everything we need now, don't we?" Amelia smiled, squeezing his hand tightly. "Yes, because in the end, we found each other." Amelia and Alexander's story is a testament to true love and the courage to overcome challenges. True love is not just about emotions, but about bravery and trust. To achieve happiness, sometimes we must face our past instead of running from it. No matter what unexpected turns life takes, family and love will always be the ultimate destination. Forgiveness, perseverance, and kindness are the keys to overcoming every challenge. And when we find the one we truly belong to, we realize it is the greatest gift of all. The city lights shimmered like dreams coming true, and in their small home, a family continued to write their love story, one filled with struggles, but overflowing with happiness. Thank you for following our story. Did this story touch your heart? Leave a comment below. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. In the bustling city filled with towering skyscrapers, where the glitz and glamour conceal the hidden corners of life, two people from entirely different worlds found their fates intricately intertwined. Emily Carter and Ethan Kingston. Emily Carter, a talented marketing executive at Kingston Enterprises, is a woman brimming with passion for both work and life. She possesses a sharp intellect, a creative mind, and a rare warmth that touches everyone around her. Despite her remarkable achievements at a young age, few know that behind her radiant smile lies a haunting childhood. Growing up in a broken family, Emily endured years of abuse from her alcoholic father. The endless nights of drunken rage and senseless beatings forged her into a resilient, strong woman. She refused to let those scars define her life. Instead, she chose to rise above them with her own hands and unwavering determination. Believing that kindness can change the world, Emily actively participates in charity work, supporting underprivileged children and those in need, because she understands all too well what it feels like to have no one to rely on. To her colleagues, she is a beacon of warmth and inspiration, but little does she know that to one powerful man, she is something much more: Ethan Kingston. In stark contrast to Emily, Ethan Kingston is a young businessman, ruthless and decisive. Born into a prestigious family where money and power reign supreme, Ethan was raised in a world where everything was meticulously arranged, leaving no room for mistakes or weakness. He once believed in love until Chloe, the woman he loved deeply, betrayed him for fame and fortune. That betrayal turned his heart to ice, transforming him into a cold, calculating man who no longer believed in the sincerity of love. Beneath the facade of a successful and hardened CEO, Ethan is a lonely man, lost in a world of numbers and strategic plans. He never allows emotions to cloud his judgment, but there is one thing he cannot control: his growing interest in Emily Carter. Emily and Ethan were destined to be parallel lines, never meant to intersect. Yet fate brought them together at Kingston Enterprises. Emily's dedication and professionalism never wavered, even under Ethan's cold and demanding leadership. She never feared him. Instead, her determination and willingness to face challenges head-on fascinated him in ways he couldn't explain. He observed her every move, from the way she tackled complex marketing strategies to how she genuinely helped her colleagues. Though he never voiced his admiration, he was always there to step in and solve problems from the shadows whenever they arose. The opportunity for Ethan to get closer to Emily arose when the company launched a major charity project, with Emily at the forefront. Her passion and compassion not only impressed the media, but also touched something deep within Ethan. She was unlike anyone in his world, genuine, sincere, and devoid of ulterior motives. Ethan gradually realized that his interest in Emily had gone beyond mere professional curiosity. He found himself seeking her presence in meetings, listening attentively to her presentations, and sometimes unknowingly watching her through his office window. But he was too afraid to admit his feelings, haunted by the fear of falling into love's trap and getting hurt once more. Emily, despite maintaining her professional composure, couldn't deny the way Ethan's gaze made her heart race. She couldn't fathom why a man like him would pay attention to her, but she occasionally sensed a hidden warmth behind his cold exterior. Yet both kept their distance, standing on opposite sides of an invisible battlefield, unwilling to cross the line and confront their true emotions. But fate has its own ways of bringing hearts closer, through unexpected circumstances that neither of them could foresee. Welcome, dear members of the Soul Stories family, to today's tale. Please subscribe to the channel and become part of this growing family. Let us know which city you're following the story from. That night, the celebration party for the success of a major project took place in the most luxurious hotel in the city. The crystal lights sparkled. Soft music echoed throughout the grand hall, blending with the lively laughter and chatter. Employees of Kingston Enterprises gathered, raising their glasses to toast their collective efforts and achievements over the past months. Emily Carter, dressed in an elegant yet understated blue gown, looked graceful and refined. She was an outstanding marketing executive, but rarely participated in extravagant parties. Tonight, she intended to make a brief appearance before returning to the office to finish her pending work. Meanwhile, Ethan Kingston, the cold and ambitious CEO, sat alone at the bar, quietly observing the crowd. Behind his tough exterior lay the immense pressures of his work and the lingering wounds of his past. With each sip of whiskey, his gaze grew darker. After finishing her report, Emily returned to the banquet hall to retrieve the documents she had left in the meeting room. She was about to leave when her eyes landed on Ethan, sitting alone at the bar, his expression weary and lonely. She hesitated for a moment before approaching him gently and asking, "Mr. Kingston, are you all right?" Ethan looked up, his hazy eyes scanning Emily's gentle face. A bitter smile flickered across his lips. "Emily, you're still here?" Emily nodded and pulled out a chair to sit beside him. "You don't seem okay." Ethan smirked faintly and poured himself another drink. "You always work this hard?" Emily smiled softly, but there was a hint of concern in her eyes. "Work is work, but I've never seen you drink this much before." He remained silent for a long moment, then unexpectedly spoke through his intoxicated haze. "Do you think I'm a terrible person, Emily?" She was slightly taken aback, but quickly responded, "No, I've never thought that." Under the influence of alcohol, Ethan suddenly grasped Emily's hand, his deep eyes locking onto hers. "You're so naive, Emily. You have no idea how cruel this world can be." She froze at his unexpected touch, her heart pounding in her chest. A strange fluttering sensation coursed through her. The world around them seemed to blur. Ethan pulled her closer, his warm breath brushing against her ear, sending a wave of unease through her. "You're beautiful and pure," he whispered, his gaze filled with an intoxicating intensity. "Do you know that?" Emily shivered slightly. She had never seen Ethan like this before. The restraint he usually carried had completely vanished, revealing a man driven by unbridled desire. "Ethan, you're drunk," she murmured, trying to hold on to her composure. But he didn't let her finish. His lips found hers, tender yet urgent, breaking down every barrier she had carefully built. Her heart pounded wildly, and despite herself, she couldn't resist the emotions surging within her. Everything happened so quickly. Before she knew it, Emily found herself in a hotel room, the soft lighting reflecting the image of two souls caught in an irresistible whirlwind of passion. She felt his hands exploring her skin, and her heart trembled under his tender touch. In that fleeting moment, she forgot that she had never truly belonged to anyone before. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting a gentle glow over the luxurious yet cold hotel room. Emily slowly awakened, her eyelashes trembling as fragments of last night's memories flooded her mind. As she realized she was lying on Ethan's vast bed, wrapped only in a thin white sheet, her body stiffened. Her heartbeat pounded wildly in her chest as the memories resurfaced. The warmth of his breath, the tenderness yet urgency of his kisses, and the moment she lost her innocence to a man she once thought was beyond her reach. Regret seeped into every fiber of her being. Emily sat up, her eyes drifting around the lavish room, which was steeped in Ethan's masculine scent. Pulling the sheet tightly around her, she felt an overwhelming emptiness and guilt. "What have I done?" she whispered to herself, clutching the edge of the sheet tightly. She had never imagined losing her innocence this way, amidst his drunken haze and her moment of vulnerability. Biting her lip, she reached up to touch her neck, where faint traces of his hurried kisses lingered. She didn't know how to face Ethan after this. He had always kept his distance, a man of cool detachment and restraint. She couldn't allow this to affect her career, her carefully built life. Taking a deep breath, Emily resolved to forget last night. She quietly gathered her clothes, slipping back into the wrinkled dress from the night before, her red-rimmed eyes filled with determination. Before leaving, she glanced at the man still lying in bed. Ethan looked surprisingly at peace, as if last night had been nothing more than a fleeting dream to him. But for her, it was a milestone she could never erase. As the door clicked shut behind her, Ethan slowly opened his eyes. He hadn't been asleep. He had been awake for a long time, silently watching her from behind. His gaze darkened, filled with turmoil. Last night hadn't just been a reckless moment fueled by alcohol. He knew that. The feeling of holding her, the way Emily trembled in his arms, the genuine sweetness she brought. It had left an indelible mark on his heart. But who was Ethan Kingston? He was a man of business, of logic, of ambition. He did not allow himself to be weak in front of anyone, especially not an employee under his command. And yet he couldn't deny that her presence was steadily taking over his thoughts. He had been silently watching her for a long time. But now, after truly touching her, his desire for her had grown stronger than ever. Love, however, was not something he was willing to admit. The fear of attachment, of reopening old wounds, made him hesitant to step closer to her. Instead, he chose to maintain his distance, masking his emotions behind a wall of cold detachment. When he arrived at the office that morning, Ethan carried his usual calm and authoritative demeanor. Yet his eyes involuntarily followed Emily whenever she walked by. She maintained her professionalism, but he noticed how she avoided his gaze, how she kept her distance. Though he remained silent, his subtle gestures of concern were unmistakable. A cup of coffee placed on her desk each morning, meeting schedules adjusted discreetly to avoid putting too much pressure on her, but none of it eased Emily's guilt. She kept her distance from him, and Ethan, bound by his pride and fear, chose to stay silent. Their love, before it even had a chance to bloom, was already being held back by Ethan's fears and stubbornness. But could this distance truly last forever? Or would there come a day when Ethan would find the courage to step towards her and face the feelings he had long buried within himself? The atmosphere at Kingston Enterprises grew increasingly tense following the incident between Emily and Ethan. Though no one knew about that fateful night, the change in Ethan's gaze whenever he looked at Emily did not escape the notice of those around him. Unfortunately, it caught the attention of Chloe Montgomery, the woman who was once part of Ethan's past. Chloe was an ambitious woman who had once betrayed Ethan in pursuit of power and wealth. However, after losing everything she once desired, she realized that no one could compare to Ethan, the man who had once loved her sincerely. Upon discovering Emily's presence in his life, Chloe could not accept the fact that an ordinary employee like her could take the place she once held in Ethan's heart. With a calculated smile, Chloe stormed into Kingston Enterprises like a whirlwind. She carried herself with an air of perfection, radiant and proud, making heads turn in admiration. Under the guise of being a potential business partner, Chloe skillfully approached Ethan with the pretense of seeking collaboration on a major project. But in reality, her true goal was to reignite old feelings and shatter the fragile connection between him and Emily. Ethan, Chloe's voice was soft but filled with hidden meaning during a private meeting, her eyes glimmering with intent. Don't you think we should give ourselves another chance? After all, we were always the perfect couple. Ethan barely looked at her, his gaze cold as it had been in the past. Chloe, whatever we had ended a long time ago. Chloe smirked, unfazed by his indifference. She knew Ethan was a man ruled by logic, and if she couldn't touch his heart, she would take another approach. Emily. Without hesitation, Chloe orchestrated a smear campaign against Emily. Leveraging her connections in the media, she spread whispers that Emily was nothing more than a gold digger, using Ethan for his wealth and influence. Sensational headlines flooded the gossip sites. Ordinary marketing employee? The new gold digger of the business world? Love or ambition? The cold-hearted CEO and the girl with a humble past. The tabloids were filled with images of Emily standing beside Ethan at company events, moments where he had unintentionally gazed at her tenderly, or instances where they coincidentally appeared together. Every eye turned toward Emily, making her the target of relentless speculation and gossip. At the office, Emily could feel the shift in the way her colleagues looked at her. Admiration turned into suspicion, and whispers followed her every step. Some murmured behind her back, "She's just pretending to be innocent. Who knows how she seduced Mr. Kingston?" Exactly. A girl from a modest background wouldn't catch the CEO's eye without a hidden agenda. Emily could clearly sense the judgmental stares and hushed conversations whenever she entered the office. She bit her lip, trying to ignore them and focus on her work as if nothing had happened. But deep down, the hurt was undeniable. When Emily saw the humiliating headlines about herself online, she had hoped for something, some kind of response from Ethan, a public denial, a gesture of protection. But he remained silent. Each day, Ethan continued his usual composed demeanor, still the serious CEO, and refused to address the rumors. That hurt Emily more than all the gossip swirling around her. "Do you have nothing to say?" She confronted him one day in his office, her eyes red with hurt. Ethan was silent for a moment, his gaze unreadable. "This will pass. You don't need to concern yourself with what nameless people say." His indifferent words felt like a cold slap to her heart. Emily nodded, forcing a weak smile before leaving his office. But she knew something inside her had broken. She understood that for the sake of his reputation and position, Ethan didn't want to acknowledge their relationship, but that didn't mean she could endure the scornful gazes forever. As the days passed, the pressure from the public scrutiny became unbearable. The once welcoming office now felt suffocating. Colleagues who had once been friendly now treated her like a stranger. Emily realized she had no choice but to leave. One morning, she placed her resignation letter on Ethan's desk. He picked it up, his sharp eyes fixed on her. "Are you running away?" he asked, his voice calm but laced with tension. Emily took a deep breath, keeping her voice steady. "I can't keep working here when everyone thinks I'm a gold digger. I can't wait for you to stand up for me forever, Ethan." Ethan clenched the resignation letter in his hands but said nothing. She bowed her head, tears welling up in her eyes, but her resolve unwavering. "Thank you for the opportunities you've given me, but it's time for me to leave." As the door closed behind her, for the first time in his life, Ethan felt an overwhelming emptiness. Yet his pride and fear held him back from calling her back. Emily left the company and returned to her hometown, carrying a heart full of wounds, but also the determination to start anew. She had no regrets about the love she had given Ethan, but she knew she couldn't continue being the weak one in this story. Meanwhile, Ethan sat in his office, staring at the empty desk where Emily once worked. For the first time, he realized that he had let go of the most precious thing in his life. But was it too late to fix his mistake? The days in Ethan's vast office grew increasingly empty and cold since Emily left. She was no longer present in meetings, no longer graced him with those gentle glances whenever they crossed paths, no longer offered those warm smiles that once helped him endure the heavy pressures of work. At first, Ethan convinced himself that her absence was nothing to dwell on, but as the days passed, the silence consumed him, and he began to realize Emily was the most precious thing he had lost. Work carried on as usual, but his life was no longer the same. The evenings stretched endlessly, and though he stared at his computer screen, he couldn't focus. In his mind, Emily's image lingered painfully vivid. Each time he unconsciously walked past her old desk, a sharp ache pierced through him. His heart slowly came to accept the truth. He missed her, so much so that every moment became a torment. One late evening, as Ethan sat in his office, the city lights filtering through the large window, the resignation letter Emily had left still lay on his desk, a haunting reminder of his mistake. Unable to bear it any longer, he stood up, grabbed his coat, and made a decision. He had to find her at all costs. With the help of his trusted assistant, Ethan found Emily's hometown address, a small, desolate town hundreds of miles away from the city. He left that very night, abandoning all his work and responsibilities, with only one thought in mind. He had to bring her back. The car sped down the long road, his mind filled with thoughts of Emily, the strong yet gentle woman he had so foolishly lost. Regret weighed heavily on his chest, making him realize he had never truly confronted his feelings for her. When he arrived, the small town emerged before him with a quiet sadness. Old houses lined the fog-covered streets, deepening the heaviness in his heart. Following the address, Ethan drove to a small house at the end of an empty street. His heart pounded at the sight of a faint light flickering through the window. Just as he stepped out of the car, a loud voice echoed from inside the house. A man's drunken, angry roar. "Where have you been all this time? Did you think you could run away from me?" Then the soft sound of Emily's muffled sobs reached his ears. Ethan clenched his fists, his blood boiling with rage. Without hesitation, he pushed the door open and stormed into the house. The scene before him made his heart freeze. Emily lay collapsed on the floor, her pale face streaked with tears, bruises clearly visible on her fragile arms. A middle-aged man with a flushed, drunken face, still clutching a cheap bottle of liquor, glared at Ethan with fury. "Who the hell are you? Get out of my house!" the man shouted. But Ethan ignored him. He rushed to Emily, pulling her to her feet, his eyes blazing with fury as they took in her injuries. "What did you do to her?" he growled, his voice thick with an anger he had never felt before. Seeing Ethan, Emily's tears flowed uncontrollably. She weakly tried to push him away, but he held her tightly in his arms, his eyes filled with determination. "You don't have to endure this anymore, Emily. I'm taking you away from here." The drunken man lunged forward to stop them, but one sharp glare from Ethan made him hesitate. "You have no right to hurt her again. Ever." With unwavering resolve, Ethan guided Emily out of the miserable house, ignoring the man's angry shouts behind them. Sitting in the car, Emily trembled, tears streaming down her cheeks. She lowered her gaze, her voice barely above a whisper. Why did you come here?" Ethan grasped her hand firmly, his eyes filled with sincerity. "I'm sorry, Emily. I should never have stayed silent. I should never have let you leave without fighting for you. But now, I won't let you go again." Emily looked into his eyes, her heart a whirlwind of emotions. She had once loved him, once hoped for a love that could last, but in the end she was the one who had to walk away when he refused to stand up for her. Now could she trust him again? Taking a deep breath, she whispered, her voice trembling. I can't go back, Ethan. I don't want everything to repeat itself. I've suffered enough." Ethan tightened his grip on her hand, his gaze unwavering. "I will change, Emily. I won't let anyone hurt you ever again. Not even myself." The sincerity in his voice made Emily's heart tremble, but the past still lingered, and the pain hadn't fully healed. "Give me time, Ethan. I need time." He nodded, knowing he had to be patient. "I'll wait, Emily, no matter how long it takes." The car drove away from the small town, carrying Emily toward a new beginning, one where she could find hope again, and where Ethan was determined to prove that his love for her was real. Upon returning to the city, Emily chose not to go back to Kingston Enterprises, but instead took a position at a small marketing firm. She wanted to stand on her own without relying on Ethan's help. She picked a modest office where no one knew about her past, a place free from scrutinizing glances and whispered gossip about her and the wealthy CEO. Emily lived a simple life, focusing on her work and avoiding attention. Yet she couldn't stop herself from thinking about him at times, the man who had once made her feel both love and pain. She couldn't forget the way he had looked at her in panic when he found her, the rare gentleness in his touch. But she also couldn't erase the memory of his silence when the world labeled her a gold digger. Since their encounter in her hometown, Ethan had persistently found ways to reappear in her life. He often visited her workplace, waited for her after work, but each time, Emily maintained her distance with caution and restraint. She remained polite and professional, but without the warmth she once carried. Every time he tried to step closer, she took a step back. "You don't have to do this, Ethan. I'm fine, and you should be too," Emily said gently one evening as he offered to walk her home after work. Ethan smiled lightly, but his eyes held a firm resolve that couldn't be swayed. "I'm not here to pressure you, Emily. I just want you to know that I'm still here." Emily turned away, hiding the tears threatening to fall. She was afraid that if this continued, she might fall for him all over again. But this time, Ethan was no longer the man solely driven by work and cold detachment. He took the time to truly understand her, gradually breaking through the walls she had built around herself. He quietly supported the charity projects she was involved in, not as the powerful CEO, but as a sincere man willing to do anything for her. One day, while Emily was busy organizing a fundraising event for an orphanage, Ethan showed up early to help. Under the curious gazes of the volunteers, he quietly took on the most mundane tasks: hanging banners, preparing meal packages, and setting up chairs. When Emily saw him, she stood frozen in place. There he was, Ethan Kingston, the renowned CEO, standing among a group of children, his suit slightly wrinkled, his hands dirty, but his smile warm and genuine. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice laced with surprise and emotion. Ethan shrugged, offering her a soft smile. "I just wanted to help, and to show you that I truly want to change." Though she didn't say it out loud, deep down, Emily knew Ethan was no longer the man he used to be. He was trying in every small way to prove his love for her. Still, Emily couldn't bring herself to fully open up. She was terrified that if she allowed herself to hope again, she would end up hurt once more. She kept her distance, wary of his gestures of affection. Yet the more she tried to stay away, the more she realized her heart had never truly stopped loving him. Ethan didn't push her. He waited patiently, understanding that she needed time to trust him again. And slowly, day by day, Emily began to sense the sincerity in Ethan's actions. The small gestures, his quiet presence, and the way he respected her space. All of it slowly mended the wounds she had carried for so long. She started allowing short conversations, letting him be a part of her life, if only as a friend for now. Emily's return gradually brought a sense of normalcy back to Ethan's life. He no longer allowed himself to be consumed by the relentless demands of his work, neglecting the most important person in his life. Although Emily maintained a certain distance, just being able to see her every day brought him a sense of peace. He understood that healing her wounds and proving his love would take time. However, just when Ethan thought he could protect Emily and start anew, Chloe, his ex-lover, returned with darker intentions than ever before. Chloe couldn't accept the fact that Ethan had chosen an ordinary woman like Emily over her. She once believed that their relationship was nothing more than a fleeting infatuation, but witnessing the profound change in Ethan, his patience, care, and unwavering devotion to Emily, she realized she had truly lost him. But she wasn't willing to surrender. Chloe had never been the type to give up easily, especially when Ethan was the one man she had considered her lifelong conquest. If she couldn't have him through love, she would take him by force. Leveraging her vast network in the business world, Chloe swiftly approached a key strategic partner of Kingston Enterprises, Lawson Group, a corporation holding a significant stake in Ethan's company. During a discreet dinner with the CEO of Lawson, Chloe whispered with calculated malice, "Ethan Kingston would never choose a woman like Emily if he weren't being manipulated. Do you really think she's capable of handling the role of a CEO's wife?" Her subtle insinuations planted seeds of doubt in the minds of Kingston's board members. Not stopping there, she spread rumors through media channels, portraying Emily as the reason for Ethan's recent distractions. which were allegedly harming the company's growth. By the time Ethan discovered the scheme, the damage was already underway. Stakeholders grew increasingly anxious, key partners withdrew important contracts, and tabloids were flooded with sensational headlines. Emily Carter, gold digger or true love? CEO Ethan Kingston sacrificing his empire for an unknown woman? These words felt like daggers to Emily's pride. Chloe wasted no time in confronting Ethan directly. She stormed into his office with a confident stride, a stack of documents and scandalous photos from the media in her hand. "Ethan, I'm here to help you," she said, her voice laced with insinuation. Ethan looked up, his eyes cold and unyielding. "I don't need your help." Chloe smirked, stepping closer and placing the documents on his desk. "Really? Take a look. Your company's stocks are plummeting, partners are pulling out, and soon the board will no longer have faith in your leadership." Ethan's jaw tightened, his hands clenching into fists as he stared at her with restrained fury. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice dangerously low. Chloe leaned in, her eyes gleaming with challenge. "It's simple. Come back to me. Publicly announce that I am the only rightful fiancé for you. If you do that, I will persuade Lawson Group and the other partners to stay. Otherwise," she shrugged with a cruel smile, "you'll lose everything. Kingston Enterprises will crumble before your eyes." Ethan's hands tightened around the edge of his desk, his knuckles turning white. A suffocating weight settled on his chest. He had worked relentlessly for years to build his empire, and now, because of his love for Emily, he faced the risk of losing it all. Looking at Chloe with disdain, he let out a cold laugh. "You think I would trade my love for numbers and contracts?" Chloe raised an eyebrow, crossing her arms smugly. "You call it love? For a woman with nothing but naive innocence? What can she offer you besides dragging you down? Think carefully, Ethan. Is she worth it?" Ethan didn't respond right away, but deep down he knew the answer. Emily was the most valuable thing he had ever possessed, and he was willing to fight for her, no matter the cost. That night, Ethan sat alone in his vast apartment. The partnership contract with Lawson lay untouched on the table, right next to a framed photo of him and Emily taken at a charity event. Her gentle gaze in the picture remained unchanged, but reality was far from kind. He knew that rejecting Chloe meant putting the company in jeopardy, but accepting her terms would mean letting go of Emily, something he could never bring himself to do. Amidst the suffocating pressure, Ethan realized he needed to find another way to salvage the situation, and this time, he wouldn't allow Chloe to manipulate his life again. With a determined gaze, Ethan rose from his seat, ready to fight to the end, for his love for Emily, and for the future he longed to build with her. After returning to the city and taking up a position at a small marketing firm, Emily kept a watchful eye on Kingston Enterprises from afar. News of the company's decline flooded financial headlines, with speculations rife about Ethan's impending downfall if he didn't reconcile with Chloe. Negative rumors sent stock prices plummeting, partners pulled out, and internal morale deteriorated rapidly. Emily knew Ethan was capable. He wasn't one to succumb easily, especially not to someone like Chloe. But she also understood that without timely intervention, he could lose everything he had worked tirelessly for. Though her heart was still cautious, Emily couldn't bear to stand by and watch him struggle alone. She convinced herself that her decision to help wasn't driven by personal feelings, but by a desire to prevent Ethan from being defeated by Chloe's schemes. One afternoon, as Ethan struggled in the boardroom with his executives, trying to devise a strategy to save the company, Emily appeared unexpectedly. She walked into the room with quiet confidence, her eyes filled with determination. The employees watched in stunned silence. They had all assumed she was gone from Ethan's world forever. "Emily?" Ethan's voice was laced with disbelief, but deep within, a flicker of hope surfaced, one he hadn't acknowledged before. Emily calmly placed a thick file on the table and spoke with poise. "We have an opportunity if everyone is willing to listen." She outlined a bold marketing plan, focusing on rebuilding the company's public image through community engagement and authentic branding strategies. Emily emphasized the importance of returning to the company's core values rather than solely chasing profit margins. Yet the biggest challenge remained: finances. The company needed a significant investment to weather the crisis. Emily recalled Bernard Hayes, a powerful investor she had once helped during a critical accident. Her kindness and dedication had saved his life, and though he had offered his gratitude back then, she had humbly declined. Bernard had once promised to repay her whenever she needed it. Taking a leap of faith, Emily decided to seek his help. Walking into Bernard's lavish office, Emily felt a knot of anxiety in her chest. She presented Kingston Enterprises' struggles with clarity, laying out a detailed recovery plan. Bernard listened intently, his expression unreadable. After a long pause, he leaned back in his chair and said, "You do realize I've never invested in a company teetering on the edge of collapse, don't you?" Emily met his gaze with quiet confidence. "I do, but I believe in Ethan. He's an exceptional leader who deserves a second chance. And I believe in the potential of Kingston Enterprises. This company can do great things with the right direction." Bernard studied her carefully before finally nodding. "All right," he said, "I'll invest. Not just for Ethan, but because of you, Emily. I've always valued your sincerity and kindness. I trust you'll play a vital role in this company's recovery." Relief flooded Emily, her eyes shimmering with gratitude. Finally, after everything, she had secured a new opportunity for Ethan and his company. When Emily shared the news with Ethan, he stood still for a long moment, unable to believe what he was hearing. He stepped closer to her, his voice thick with a mix of regret and gratitude. "You did this? For me?" he asked, his tone low and filled with unspoken emotions. Emily nodded but maintained a composed distance. Her voice was soft yet resolute. "I did this for the company, for the people who have dedicated their lives to it, not just for you." Ethan understood that Emily had not yet fully forgiven him, but her unwavering sincerity made him realize one thing: he could not afford to lose her again. With Bernard's investment, Kingston Enterprises began a remarkable recovery. The brand image restructuring projects proposed by Emily were implemented, gradually restoring trust from customers and partners. With Emily's support, Ethan not only revived the company, but also learned to become a better leader, one who listens and values those around him. Each passing day made him realize that Emily was not just the woman he loved, but the person he needed in his life. However, he knew that to win her heart, he had to prove himself worthy of her love. Dear readers, are you still following the story? What do you think about the female protagonist selflessly helping Mr. Bernard, and in times of hardship, he repaid her with a massive investment? After relentless efforts from both Emily and Ethan, Kingston Enterprises gradually regained its position in the business world. The innovative marketing strategies, combined with the strong backing of investor Bernard Hayes, helped the company stabilize its finances and restore trust with its partners. Stock prices began to rise again, key projects were relaunched, and the company's public image gradually improved. However, the threat from Chloe was far from over. She refused to accept the fact that Ethan was slipping beyond her control. Together with her former associates, Chloe continuously spread false rumors, attempting to shake the trust Ethan and Emily had worked so hard to rebuild. Ethan was no longer the silent, cold man he once was. He publicly addressed the media, refusing to let the rumors spiral further. At a crucial press conference, he appeared composed, yet resolute, his sharp gaze unwavering. "We do not have time to deal with baseless rumors. Kingston Enterprises has always operated with transparency and a commitment to delivering true value to our customers," he firmly declared. Meanwhile, with Emily's support, the company gathered substantial evidence of Chloe's deceitful actions. The documents revealed how Chloe had conspired with partners to exert pressure on the company and had deliberately manipulated the media to tarnish the reputations of both Ethan and Emily. Emily, with her intelligence and resourcefulness, had been quietly collecting evidence all along. She worked closely with the legal team to ensure that all documents were verified and could be used in court if necessary. One day, while Chloe was reveling in her false sense of victory, she received breaking news from a major financial publication. Her misconduct had been exposed on the front page. The article detailed how Chloe had colluded with partners to fabricate damaging rumors and provided evidence of her past unethical business dealings. Her once glamorous image as a successful businesswoman crumbled, and she was now seen by the public as a cunning fraudster. At the same time, Ethan and Emily appeared in an exclusive interview, speaking out about the situation for the first time. Ethan made it clear that he had never intended to rekindle anything with Chloe, and that the person he truly valued was Emily, the one who had stood by him through the toughest of times. She is not just an exceptional employee, she is the person I trust the most. It was Emily who helped me reassess my values in this company. Ethan's sincere words left Emily deeply moved. After the truth was exposed, Chloe found herself at the center of public scrutiny. Her business partners withdrew one by one, contracts were canceled, and her reputation collapsed overnight. She desperately tried to reach out to Ethan for help, but this time he remained unmoved. He left her with a cold and final response. "You should learn to take responsibility for what you've done, Chloe." With no other options, Chloe left the city in silence, carrying the weight of humiliation and failure. As the storm settled, Ethan let out a sigh of relief. He turned to Emily, his eyes filled with deep gratitude. "If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been able to do this." Emily gave him a gentle smile, maintaining a certain distance, though her heart couldn't deny the emotions stirring within. "You just need to learn to trust those around you, and you'll never have to fight alone," she replied, her eyes reflecting both kindness and strength. With Chloe no longer a threat, the company flourished more than ever. Emily continued her work at the small marketing firm, but Ethan persistently sought ways to bring her back into his life. He showed up at her charity events, offering his genuine support. Slowly, the distance between them began to close. Ethan learned to express his feelings in a sincere and heartfelt way, letting go of the cold pride that once defined him. One day, standing on stage at an awards ceremony honoring Emily's contributions to the community, Ethan took her hand in front of hundreds of people. "Emily, you've stood by me through my darkest times. I want you by my side forever. Will you marry me?" Emily was stunned, tears glistening in her eyes. She had once believed that she could never forgive him, but looking into his sincere gaze now, she knew she was ready to move forward. She nodded gently, and in that moment, all the pain and misunderstandings faded away, leaving behind only true love and uncontainable happiness. On the morning of their wedding, soft sunlight filtered through the lush green trees in the Kingston Estates garden. The scene was adorned with pristine white flowers, fluttering in the gentle breeze, creating a warm and romantic atmosphere. Every detail was perfectly arranged, from the tables adorned with delicate roses to the twinkling lights blending into the fairy tale ambience. Emily stood in front of the mirror, wearing a pure white wedding gown, exuding elegance and joy. Her soft brown curls cascaded down her shoulders, and her eyes sparkled with happiness and emotion. She gently touched the simple yet meaningful necklace Ethan had given her during their first project together. Outside, Ethan stood in a sharp black suit, feeling a nervousness he had never experienced before. The once cold and ambitious businessman was now just a man waiting for the love of his life to walk down the aisle and become his wife. As Emily walked towards him, each step light and graceful on the floral aisle, the world seemed to pause. Ethan couldn't take his eyes off her. In his gaze, there was no longer the pride of a powerful CEO, but instead, a love so deep and unwavering. The officiant's voice rang out warmly. "Ethan Kingston, do you take Emily Carter to be your wife, to love, cherish, and protect her for the rest of your life?" Ethan looked into Emily's eyes, his voice steady yet filled with tenderness. "I do, forever." A soft smile graced Emily's lips as tears of joy welled in her eyes. "Emily Carter, do you take Ethan Kingston to be your husband, to share all joys and sorrows, and to face all challenges together?" She squeezed his hand tightly, her voice trembling with emotion, but filled with certainty. "I do, forever." Applause erupted as they sealed their vows with a kiss, one filled with love, hope, and promises for a lifetime of happiness. The reception that followed was an intimate gathering with their closest friends and family. Ethan and Emily didn't need an extravagant wedding because they knew that the most important thing was the love they had for each other. Looking into each other's eyes, they both knew they had overcome everything to be together on this day. Not long after their wedding, Emily shared the joyful news that left Ethan overwhelmed with happiness. Together, they embarked on a journey filled with eager anticipation and boundless excitement. Ethan took care of Emily with unwavering devotion, ensuring she had nutritious meals, accompanying her on gentle strolls, and being by her side whenever she felt weary. Finally, the long-awaited day arrived. As Emily endured the pains of labor, Ethan held her hand tightly, refusing to leave her side. After hours of tense anticipation, the newborn's cry echoed through the room, filling it with overwhelming joy. Ethan gazed down at the tiny baby cradled in the doctor's arms, his heart melting instantly. The baby had Ethan's eyes, but his gentle smile was unmistakably Emily's. As Ethan gently held his son for the first time, his voice trembled with love. "My son, welcome to the world." Emily, despite her exhaustion, watched the beautiful moment with eyes brimming with happiness. She whispered softly, "Thank you, Ethan, for always being here." Ethan kissed her forehead tenderly and whispered back, "Thank you for being the mother of my child." The days that followed were filled with laughter and endless joy. Despite his demanding work schedule, Ethan always made time for his family. He personally rocked his son to sleep, read bedtime stories, and never hesitated to stay up late caring for the baby so that Emily could rest. With her gentle nature and compassionate heart, Emily created a warm and loving home. She taught their son about kindness, love, and the importance of helping others, values she had always held dear. True love is not just about the passionate moments in the beginning, but a lifelong journey of patience, understanding, and forgiveness. Emily and Ethan had weathered countless storms, but it was their sincere love that helped them overcome everything. Love is not always perfect, but if two people truly care for each other, they will face every challenge together and build a fulfilling family where love remains the strongest bond. As Emily stood in their cozy home, watching their little son sleep peacefully in Ethan's arms, she realized she had finally found the happiness she had always dreamed of. Thank you for following our story. Did this story touch your heart? Leave a comment below. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.